giant ruler here that goes along with our message series called Good Measure. And what we're talking about in this series is finding exactly what God has made the standard to be. In this world, we need to be set apart from it. But in this world, there is a lot of things that, before you know it, landslide on top of you, that overcome you, and you're like, well, that's just the way it is. Or that's just the way it has to be. And so we're here as Christians to say, well, that's not necessarily true, or it's not true. And actually, here is the true measuring stick. This right here, I can actually tie it to this right here. So we need to go to the Bible to find out what is the standard. Now, this message series ties in with a book that we've given to our trail guide groups, and what that book is called it's called Weird by Greg Crochelle. If you do not have this book, or you're not a part of our trail guide groups, then I encourage you to find it. There's a few websites out there right now that are selling the book for $5. I think it's christianbooks.com maybe that has it for $5. But it's a great read, very easy. I'm an audible book type of kid, so I will listen to the book, and it's a 6-hour listen, but you can double speed on your device, and you can listen to it in 3. So it's awesome. So while you're going around the house or doing stuff, just put it on double speed, and it takes about a minute for your brain to get used to that real fast talk, but it's great, all right? So good measure. So part 2 this morning, and we're going to talk about time. I'm going to give you 2 examples of time this morning. Years ago, we had a couple here at the church, Greg and Caroline. Oh, I love them. They are actually my heroes. They are younger than me, and Tom and Hillary and I had the privilege to help them out in this venture that they decided to go upon in their lives. And what that adventure was, now they were young, 21, 22. They sold all of their worldly possessions. Now, I mean everything. Like when they got married, you know how you got like the mini toaster oven? And instead of like wrapping it in a box and putting it in the garage, so when they were done with this adventure, they would just come back and still have a toaster oven, right? No, they sold it. And so we were all like, what? That's ridiculous. Like, why would you have to sell it? But they sold everything except their car, right? They kept their car. That's the smart thing. It was paid off, and so that was off to the side. They had a prepaid phone. They got everything was prepped and ready because they were going to hike the Appalachian Trail from start to finish. Now, it's a very big mileage type of trip. It takes anywhere between 5 to 7 months. Typically, you'd want to keep it in the 5-month range so you don't get into the bad, nasty weather. But they had asked me to take them to the Trailhead of it's in Georgia, of the Appalachian Trail. So when I asked Tom and Hillary to join me, because I knew they would enjoy the adventure. So as we get down to the Trailhead, we camp out that night. And so the next morning, we wake up on top of this beautiful hilltop in Georgia. It was gorgeous. We were the only ones camping out. And so we're watching them pack their gear, and it's considered ultralight packing. So she had like 2 shirts, 2 socks. That's it. Like, that's it, right? Like, that's it. And then she had like little jars of containers of little things to help with cooking and food prep and all that kind of stuff. And it was just crazy. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there on this picnic table, and she does this, her eye thing, pulls out her contact, and blows it away. And it just blew away. And I'll go, whoa, what are you doing? She goes, I don't need them anymore. I go, well, you could die on the trail from not being able to see in front of you. And she goes, no, I got these glasses online for like $1. And she pulls out these Ronald McDonald glasses. They're like this big. And so I'm like, what? They're massive. And they had like multiplication numbers on the side here. Like, I was like, those were like less than $1. I'm like, and so she puts them on, and so sure enough, we take them to the Trailhead. They weigh their backpacks. Hers weighed, I think, in the scale of about 30 to 35 pounds, and this was water and food and everything, and clothing, everything. And then Caroline, she put her backpack on the scale, or sorry, Greg put his backpack on the scale, and it was like 40, 45 pounds, the tent and all that stuff. And so we get to the Trailhead, and immediately I remember of a moment that I had with Greg 6 months prior to that. So we're sitting here in the sanctuary, And Greg, my phone kind of beeps all the time. If you're ever with me, it's either beeping or something, you know. So Greg says, my goodness, man, what's wrong with your phone? And I said, well, it's reminders, and it's got a calendar. And so I pulled up my calendar, and I showed it. And on the calendar, there's like all these dots. And he goes, are those things you have to do? And I go, yeah. He goes, oh, God. And you could see it in his face, like, here's a 21-year-old kid telling me, huh, like, no. Here, I'm learning from this kid of like 21. Here, I'm 34 or 33 at the time, and I'm listening to him talk about like, oh, man, you know, I don't want any of that in my life. So we get to the trailhead. There they are with their packs on. All that they own is in their backpack. And I get sick inside. So does Hillary and Tom, because we're so jealous. And they go, all right, see you guys later. We hug them. We loved on them. And then they just started walking. 7 months later, they called me up and they said, we did it. They sent me this photo of them on top of this giant mountain in Maine. They said, hey, can you pick us up? I go, no. It's like a 20-hour drive. And they go, we're going to hitchhike to Boston, and then we'll catch a bus to D.C. Will you pick us up in D.C.? And I was like, sure. Little did I know that when I picked them up in D.C., they had yet to have a shower. For like weeks. But boy, did I love their stories. I mean, driving back with them, it was just one of the highlights of my life. I mean, it was up there, listening to them talk about how many pairs of shoes they went through. Greg went through 4 because he kept using duct tape to tape the sole back to the shoe. Caroline, on the other hand, she went through 5. Crazy stories, just crazy. And I loved every minute of it, to hear about the nights where they just were doing nothing. There was a week where they slept in the tent for a week because of the downpour of rain, and they just couldn't leave the tent. Now, some of you are like, oh, God, that'd be gross. But if you're in love with your spouse, hey, hold on. But if you're in love with your spouse, how awesome is that, though? A full week of nothing. Just hanging out. I mean, that's the greatest thing ever. No kid. I hear Jason in the back. No kids. No kids. Nothing. Nothing. No responsibility. You don't have to mow the lawn. You don't have to call anyone. You couldn't call anyone. There was nothing. I mean, just nothing for like a week solid. Yeah, it was rain. I'm sure they got stir crazy. That's a given. But, I mean, really, nothing, right? Second story. So I'm at Kings Island, kind of like North Carolina's Carowinds. So Kings Island's in Cincinnati. I was there, I don't know, about 8 years ago or so with another couple, my wife and I. And so we're hanging out in the line to do this really cool ride. We're so excited. So as we go through the line and we get through towards almost to the section where you know you're about to load up, you're just sitting there and on the railing, just kind of hanging out and talking. It's taken like half an hour to get to this point, where they put those Coke machines up, the vending machines. Well, there was a woman there by herself with her 2 young daughters. And so as they're in the line, they get up to the vending machine, and so they start trying to put their money in the vending machine to get something to drink. Well, the machine wasn't taking their dollar. And so she kept working with it, and she asked a few people, hey, do you got change? I'm trying to work this thing, and no one's like, I don't have any change. So she got $1 to work, so then she knew the machine worked, so then she's trying to get another dollar. Well, there's these 2 teenagers and their mom right behind them. And so one of the teenager girls says, move up. And so the mom goes, well, just a second, I'm trying to get drinks here. Mind you, this is a line like this. You're talking 3 feet, right? And so this teenage girl says, move up, lady. She says, miss, I'm trying to get a drink for my daughter. You can see their daughters are thirsty, and it's hot out, and she's just trying to work. She goes, just give me a second. The line's only moved 3 feet. It's not that far. Even if I waited 10 more minutes, Would it really matter? Because you're going to be right at the same spot you would be. It does not matter. She tries again. Still nothing. The young teenager starts mouthing off even more. Finally, she starts pushing, and she starts trying to get around, and finally the mom stops and says, I explained to you, I'm trying to get this drink to work, and before you know it, that teenager grabbed the mother by the hair and pulled her down and started punching her. I know it's a horrific story, and I'm so sorry I'm explaining this, but I really want you to get a hold of this message this morning. And immediately, I'm like 4 rows over, and I'm going, oh my God, someone. Sure enough, this guy jumped over, pulled them apart, and I mean, I'm horrified by the whole circumstance, because here's this woman and her 2 daughters, and the 2 daughters started crying, and the other mom's doing nothing whatsoever, nothing. And so they got separated. A couple men jumped in and separated them and took care of it all. Crazy, right? Time, right? So here's 2 completely different circumstances of what really matters in life. Like time, resting, enjoying it, hurry, because you got 5 feet of empty space in front of you. And it's a matter of life and death. It's 5 feet. We got to move this, right? So, the Bible, Psalm chapter 46, verse 10. Psalm chapter 46, verse 10 says, be still and know that I am God. I don't want you guys to walk out of this service this morning with either one of these examples of what I'm about to say here to kind of follow you. I want you to understand that being lazy is bad. Please read Proverbs, okay? So in my message this morning, my point isn't to tell you, hey, give everything up and just do nothing all day and quit your job. Play video games, all right? No. So read Proverbs and learn. That's not how you do this, okay? And then the other side of this isn't if you work hard and you work really diligent and you're a good steward of your workplace and all that, then you're a bad person because you're working too hard, okay? So if you work 10 hours 1 or 2 days out of the week when you should just only be working 8 hours, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, okay? So there's the balance of the scales. So I don't want you to think, I want you to become lazy and stop everything, and by no means do I want you to think that you're a bad person because you are just diligent with your work and that you're excited about what you do and you want to be successful, okay? So, Psalm chapter 46, verse 10, be still and know that I am God. That is the key verse for this morning of being still, breathing, not becoming anxious, not becoming overwhelmed. That is the key to this. Because the world is trying to tell us that the harder we work, the more meaningful our life will be. The harder we do things, the more we strive, the more things. Take on this extra job so that we can have a better car. Take on a 3rd job so we can have a bigger house. It's those types of things that we start putting in front of us, are these horrific goals that we put in place so that we can try to tell everyone, look, we're successful because look at my car. I had a 15-year-old Lexus that was given to me by my father-in-law because they felt sorry for my wife and I because I only had 1 car, okay? So they were like, you need to take this car. It's a 15-year-old Lexus. But I had someone actually come up to me and they said, ooh, you got a Lexus. And I was like, it's 15 years old and it's worth $2,000 and the heat doesn't even work in it. I'm like, the power seats are shot. And it's like, there's leather that has like cracks all in it. It's not that great. It's a car. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ungrateful. But I could see that there was something inside of that individual that was saying, oh, a Lexus. That strived to have something greater and bigger. And that would be more meaningful. And that's not it. So I want to read Romans chapter 12, verse 2 again. And I'll read this every week here in this month. But it says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Because again, guys, what we're experiencing in our life here on earth is it's just go, 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 go. We have to go, 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 go. And it's almost become ridiculous because I have this conversation often with people, and this is the phrase, how am I going to get this all done? There's not enough time in the day. And I love what Greg Chriselle brings out of his book, and he says, if you had one more hour in your day, instead of a 24-hour day, you got blessed with a 25-hour day, what would that extra hour be spent on? What's the importance of that hour? Would it be spent on sleep? Would it be spent on family? Would it be spent on getting things done at work? What is that hour worth to you? And I've got to let you know that if it doesn't fall in the scale that, and this is truth, guys, this is a good fact scale. God, family, work, church, and I'm a pastor. Family, church, work, okay? So, and I honestly would tell you to put church in front of work, but just don't get fired. That's my thing to it, okay? All right, just because there's a balance there. I don't want you to get fired, and I don't want you to be like, I'm sick today, Pastor Josh, I can help out. No, that's wrong, okay? But that's the scale. That's how it goes. So where's your hour spent? What happens, Is it sleep? Is it something that sleep falls into a lot of people's categories? Well, that's a common question, right? Everyone loves Sundays because it's nap day. It's a nap day. But guys, we got to be really proactive in knowing what God says, what God has to say about time. And so in Colossians chapter 3, verse 23, it says, and whatever you do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not to men. So whatever you do it with your whole heart, and don't do it to men, don't do it for men, but do it for the Lord. So that does actually work in your workplace. So in your workplace, if you're a carpenter, if you're an engineer, if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, I don't care what you are, a computer technician of some sort, you're doing it for God. And so it's God's time. When you even, and I mean this, I know the whistle blows at 5 for some whistle blows at 2 o'clock in the morning. But when that whistle blows, it's a matter of stopping and saying, all right, God, what next? I've done my work today. What do I do now? And do I continue to figure this out, the particular job that I'm working on? Or do I just stop, go home? God, what is it that I'm doing? Because I wholeheartedly want to do it on your behalf and not for men. I'm not here to please men, but I promise you guys, I know you're probably sitting there going, yeah, God's not going to strike down lightning on me because he doesn't really do that anymore necessarily, but my boss, Bob, he will kill me. And so I really got to listen to Bob before I listen to God. Guys, I promise you this, if you listen to God, Bob will hear God, okay? So it's a matter of saying, God, what do you want me to be doing right now? What is more worth your time and my time? What is it? So if we do what the world says, and we keep working ourselves to death, we keep avoiding our children, avoiding our family, avoiding rest, of just pausing, then I would say that if we guys, the bad thing is if we avoid these things, then we're getting caught up into what the world's standards are. And we know men are failures. We fail at pretty much all things that we touch if it's us doing it. Okay? Us alone, we fail because it's not God's best. And by not listening to God, we end up going down paths we don't need to go down. We end up doing things extra, ridiculous stuff, and then we get down in this rut and we kind of go, how did we get here? What are we doing? And you have to work yourself back out, and that's bad. If you've ever been hiking, there's nothing worse than finding yourself down the wrong trail and you pass people and they go, hey, so where are you guys going? Well, we're trying to get to this. And they go, oh, no, you missed it like 2 miles back. What? You have to hike back 2 miles and you missed all this time. That's like the worst feeling ever. And this is the world trying to tell us, you've got to put this on. We've got teenagers thinking that they all can become celebrities. We have parents that are like, yes, there are stories like Taylor Swift where the mom moves to Tennessee and to Nashville and she got the lucky break and she became famous because her parents sacrificed the move and moved to Nashville. But now it's like everybody wants to move. It's like now let's all move to Nashville. Unless all of our kids try to be famous. It's like, sorry, Johnny, you're not as cool as Bobby. We're going to pursue Bobby's career now. You missed your opportunity. He's like 6. You know? But all these parents are driving their kids to do these ridiculous days of time and time and time when they just need to be kids. And it's meaningful for us. It's like this is the meaningful side of life. If we have a successful child. I was at a basketball game this past week. One of our young kids here at the church, Noah, he was on a basketball team, and they asked us to come and watch the game. I was so excited, showed up. And all of a sudden, this kid on the other team held his mouth like this. And I was like, did he lose a tooth? And all of a sudden, then I realized, janitor comes out, throws powder over top of it. Yeah, he upchucked. And I was like, oh, brutal, right? So the kid, I go to the bathroom. My kid, it was like a 3-minute break while they're trying to clean it up. So my kid's like, gotta go pee. So we go to the restroom. As we're in the restroom, that kid's in there. So I see what's going on. There's powder all over the bathroom floor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So I go back up in the bleachers, and I'm just sitting there. I don't really care about the game necessarily because I have no interest other than Noah. So I cheer him for Noah. So I'm not paying attention to everything. But then all of a sudden, I realize that kid is back on the court, right? And sure enough, a few minutes later, white powder all over the floor again. And I'm sitting there going, what is wrong with these parents? So sure enough, our team, they all stand up and start mouthing off. What's wrong with you? Like, why would you put this kid back on the floor? And they're like, Lysol that ball! Like, they're yelling all this stuff. I'm losing it because I don't have any interest in, no invested side of it all. I'm just like, wow, Lysol! And you can hear it, and it's so funny. But I'm sitting there as just a regular bystander going, wow, where did it come to the point where you pushed your kid? I did recognize, though, this kid was one of the star players of the team. Right before, in the first quarter, right before the buzzer, as it started ticking down, this is a 9-year-old, shot a ball about NBA three-point and swished it on a 10-foot rim. Drove it down. Drove it, stopped, shot it. It was a beautiful shot. Whoosh. I could tell this was a good kid, good player. But is it worth the push? Now, I know some of the parents in here are competitive parents. I know some of you are like, yeah, it is. Tiger Woods, baby. Tiger Woods. Right? Tiger Woods. That's everyone's example. Like, you've seen those kids, like 3-year-olds. Okay, hold on, time out. Let's talk about basketball energy, golf energy. 3-year-old out on a putting green. All right? Guys, where's it going to stop? Where are we going to draw the line? Because the bottom of all of this, the point of this is that we've got to learn to say no to some good things in order to say yes to the best things. Because we're overworking ourselves. We're killing ourselves for the world. We're killing ourselves for material things. And that's sad. So very sad. And in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, this is so good, and it's one of the most quoted scriptures in all of the Bible. Then Jesus said, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you what? Did he say, hey, I'm going to give you more. Hey, I want you to do this as well. So when you give me some of your burdens, I'm going to put others on you. So give me the ones that aren't worth anything, and I'm going to put the good ones on you. No, he said, I'm going to give you rest. Do you think it's by coincidence that we see that a lot of these prophets, Jesus himself, the Son of God, going out into the desert and doing nothing for 40 days? I mean, is that crazy? So, he wants to give you rest. And then he says in verse 29, take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. Guys, if you feel like you're just overwhelmed and busy, and it's like you can never catch up, you can never get enough rest. And I know a lot of moms in this room are saying amen. Listen, we were woken up this morning at 4 in the morning. Bad dream, right? Bad dream. Then the dog starts barking. And then we look at each other at 4 in the morning. Who's going to go into the bed with that kid? Paper, rock, scissors, that piece. I got up. One out of like a billion times, my wife will go the 999,000 million times than I will. I'm a bad husband when it comes to that. I'll admit. So, my wife is awesome. But last night I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going in his bed. But, guys, we need to find rest. And I'm not talking about the mom with the kids. Okay, I'm not talking about that type of circumstance or that situation. What I'm explaining is we don't have to do something every night. Every weekend doesn't have to have something. It's like we feel this void of like, we got to do something. It's not fun if we're just sitting here. It's not fun just to sit. I mean, there's oftentimes in the beginning of my own marriage that we'd sit there on the couch and we'd just be hanging out, and my wife would be like, we just never talk anymore. And I go, well, what do you want to talk about? And she's like, really? She has gotten to that point where we have to try to find something to talk about? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then it's like, well, do you want to go to the park? And she goes, no. It's like, well, do you want to go to the movies? No, I don't want to go to the movies. It's like we felt like we have to fill the void of doing something rather than just hanging out, sitting beside each other, explaining our thoughts, our hopes, our dreams, our passions. So I'm challenging you guys to get to this moment again where it's like, let's say no to the multiple sports with our kids. Let's say no to going out every weekend. Let's say no to coming home every day at 7 when we could be coming home at 5 because the work will get done. Stop avoiding dinner. Stop avoiding the sit-downs with your family. Stop trying to fill all these gaps with ridiculous stuff when it really doesn't even matter. We all fall into those traps. Got to get it done. Got to do it. Got to do it now. Got to do it. Got to do it. But it doesn't. Listen, we have 2 Volkswagen buses here at the church. And any one of you guys, as long as you can drive a stick, are more than welcome to drive it, okay? I'm telling you, it's a life lesson. When you get on the interstate and all you can go is about 55, 60. Noni will vouch for this. Noni knows. She's driven it. And I doubt she drove it around town, so you probably didn't experience what I'm about to say. But if you get on the interstate with the Volkswagen bus, you'll be blown away about how everyone wants you to go faster. And I always look at them and go, why? I'm not endangering anyone. I'm going above the minimum speed of the interstate. But everyone honking. I've trapped people between semis because they want to go. I actually almost had one person go this way. I was in the far right lane. Woman's going to pass me on the, whatever that thing's called, the burn, beat, whatever it's called, the side of the road. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you doing, you know? Because I wasn't going their speed. Guys, no one in this room needs to feel any of that in your life. Don't worry about the competition of others. Don't feel like you need to catch up to them. It's pointless. Go your speed. Go God's speed. His time. Not your time, His time. All right? Now, my last and final point, as a pastor, I got to stick it in there. I will find it often. And no one get your feelings hurt. And if I step on your toes this morning, come on. I'm just being honest. We got to be honest in church. All right? But I have come across folks that hit and miss at church. And I know, hey, I understand the side of I got to do this and this came up, or I'm going on a weekend trip, and we celebrate weekend trips here at the church. If you do a weekend away and you're going to go, you got a boat, you know, and you're going to go for a weekend of camping. Sean and Dana, they go camping all the time. We love it, you know. It's like go camping, go enjoy the weekend, go enjoy yourself. Because one thing I do know, I know their spiritual health, and I know what they're doing on top of that mountain. They're actually praying. They're actually enjoying themselves, talking about God with themselves. So I'm like, oh, have fun weekend, you know. But I've come across folks in the grocery store, and I see them in the aisle, and I've seen them like pass the aisle, and they'll see me. And then they keep going. And I'm like, and so then we end up hitting. That's it. End up right there. And they go, hey. And I go, hey. And I won't even say anything because I am not that guy to be like, where have you been? But they'll say to me, they'll say, oh, we just been busy. That's the first words out of their mouth. We just been busy. Life caught up to us. We got busy doing this, busy doing that, busy doing this, busy doing that. Going to church does not create a ticket to go to heaven. Okay? I know this. I'm not going to be that pastor. I'm taking a log and I'm going to give it to Jesus when I get up to the gates. Right? But I do know this is the place that betters your week. This is the place that you get equipped, that you get fed, and that you go out, and that you do what God's calling you to do. It spurs you on. This is the place where you can find rest. This is the place where you worship God at. This is the place where you can cast your cares at His feet. It's a place where you can get refreshed. This is the point of church. So when I come across folks and family members, and some of you I can't even see you, I swear. One of these days I'm going to pulling people up so they can see. I can't see your faces that well, okay? So I have no idea if you haven't been here in a couple months and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, you brought it up because I showed up this morning. No, it's not the case at all. It's in my message right here. I got proof, dated. But I'm just telling you that when you get to heaven, could you imagine looking at God and God saying to you about your time well spent? And you look at Him and you say, just didn't have time. Just didn't have time. You didn't have time, not necessarily just here at church to come here on Sunday morning, but throughout the week. You didn't have time for me? You didn't have time? Because, guys, we all know that if you want to do something, you'll do it. You'll make time. Every one of us, we know this. Oh, you will avoid stuff. You will cut it out. Not going to happen. Not this day. I'm going here. I'm doing this. Hey, I found out the Challenge Golf Course over here, they have soccer golf. Oh, you guys have no idea. That just went like number one up on my life have-to-dos. It's like a hole this big, right? And you tee off with the soccer ball and you get it. Josh Reimler, you're all into this. I saw your face. Right. You're going. You're going to make time. We're going to do this. We're going to set a date and then we're going to do it. And I'm going to tell my wife when she'll be like, hey, our kid just did this and just barfed and puked and did all this stuff. And I'm going to be like, I got to go. Nothing will stop me from going to do this. I'm going to make time to do these things. Guys, we've got to put God priority number one. God is worth our time. And I'll finish it with these verses in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15. So be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. Don't act thoughtlessly, but understand what the Lord wants you to do. Don't be drunk with wine because that will ruin your life. Instead, be filled with the Holy Spirit, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs among yourselves and making music to the Lord in your hearts, and give thanks for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Wouldn't it be awesome to have a workplace that you could go into and you're whistling worship songs and someone else, whistling when Dave's the worst. I work with Dave, and I'll do this, and he doesn't even know it, but I do it on purpose to see, but I'll whistle. Dave's a catch whistler, so he's the guy you'll whistle, and all of a sudden he'll start. I bet you if I did it right now, he'd start whistling. That you could whistle, and he just whistles. Can you imagine, though, going to your workplace, and you're whistling a worship song, and someone else in the workplace starts whistling the worship song, and you start singing the worship song, and you're like, and it's like a worship song, and then like Susan pops up from the secretary desk, and she starts singing this song, and it's like awesome, and everyone's like having a great time. I mean, that'd be like the best thing on the planet. Right? But that's really what was intended, that all day long, every single day, we're singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs among yourselves and making music to the Lord in your hearts. That we're doing good things and that we're doing it with thoughtfulness, and we're putting effort into doing the opportunities that God has placed before us and not what the world has placed before us. So I challenge you this week to say no. Say no to some things. Take some breaths. Look at your boss and say, is there any chance that I could go home a little earlier today? I want to be with my wife. I want to be with my husband. Is there any way that I can just get off a little something? Guys, it's time for us to do what God's called us to do. Stop wasting away time on this world and put it all in for God. Let's pray.